Hey everyone, this is Bridgette Raes, and I'm back with another stylish tip for you this week, and I'm, of course, joined by my intern, Kathleen!
Hey!
Hello! It was Kathleen's birthday last week. I'll have to show everyone a photo of, actually, maybe I can. We were really silly last week. Were those mojitos like lighter fluid, or what? One, or were lightweights. Holy moly! So, Kathleen's holding the camera, and I'm here with a tip. This week I want to talk a little bit about fabric. I was asking Kathleen this morning if she knew what bias cut meant, and it was something that I think she needed a little bit more clarification on, right? You weren't 100% sure what that meant when fabric's cut on the bias. Okay, so if you've ever noticed that you have, it happens a lot in dresses and skirts, sometimes even tops, that they have like a lot of shape to them. They seem very slinky, like from the 40s. You heard about bias cut dresses. They were like usually in these like satiny fabrics, and there weren't a lot of seams in them. To achieve this kind of slinkiness, fabric is often cut what's called on the bias. Basically, it means to take fabric. So I have an actual little, why does it say cancel, remove red eye? Wait, hold on. Okay. So I have here what would look like a really exploded fabric to give you guys an idea of what bias cut is. So when fabric is woven, there are yarns that go up and down, and those are called warp yarns, and those are attached to a loom when fabric's woven. And the yarns that go from left to right are called weft yarns. I don't have a speech impediment. My husband always says I sound like I have. They're called weft yarns. And those yarns weave in and out of the warp yarns on a loom. So that's how fabric is created. Now, when fabric is cut on the bias, it means that the pattern is cut on fabric that has been turned. So you see when you turn fabric, Kathleen, what happens is now the fabric, the weave is going on a diagonal. Okay. So when clothing is cut on the bias, when it's cut this way, the fabric has its own sort of clingy effect when it's sewn. But there's a downside to it. The downside is when you cut clothing on the bias, it literally grows. It literally stretches. If you take fabric cut on the bias and you stretch it, you will... I was looking to see if I had some fabric to show. You will notice it has a lot of pull versus when you pull it when it's not cut on the bias. So it gives it this natural stretch, which can be very shapely, and it's almost like having a knit. The problem is, though, when it hangs on a hanger too long, it starts to grow. So a lot of times when women have things that are cut on the bias, they go, wow, did I gain weight? Why is it longer than when I bought it? Why are there bumps forming on the side seams of my skirt or dress? Why is the hem going either in like a half moon this way or this way? All these things are happening. Why is the hip curve lower than where it was when I wore this skirt last year? The problem is that when you hang something that's cut on the bias for too long, it literally will start to grow. In fact, when they made bias cut gowns in the 40s and the 30s, what designers would do before they'd cut the garment on fabric that was on the bias, they would stretch and let this bias cut fabric or the fabric on the bias hang for days before they'd cut it to let it stretch completely before cutting it. Nowadays, with mass manufacturing, there's not enough time to do that anymore. So now they're cutting fabric on the bias, they're selling it, women are hanging it in their closets, and what's happening is it's literally growing. It's growing, and the fabric and the clothing is not. It's going to grow. It's going to get slimmer. It's going to get misshapen. You're going to notice those bumps on the side seam. You're going to notice that it gets all weird in the hem. So, if you buy anything cut on the bias, the first thing you want to look at is the weave. And you want to look at, does that fabric, that instead of going this way, is it going this way? Is the weave going this way? If it is, it means it's cut on the bias. And the first thing that you want to do is get that clothing off of a hanger. You do not want to hang bias cut clothing because it will grow. It will stretch and it will grow. One way you can consider hanging things cut on the bias if you don't want to fold them is to fold it over a hanger this way. This is not cut on the bias, but this will give you an idea of how you can hang it so you have not all the weight coming from the shoulders, because it will grow. I would just fold it though. I would just fold anything cut on the bias, because when you fold it, you're not creating, the gravity isn't going to be pulling the garment down. So it's really important, if you notice this happening a lot with your clothing, to not hang anything that's been cut on the bias. Another tip that I want to give you is when you have pants. You ever have a pair of pants, Kathleen, that are made of like stretch, like cotton stretch particularly,
Yeah.
and by the end of the day, your knees are bagged out, the pants seem a size bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know why that happens?
No.
Okay. So why that happens, it happens a lot with cotton stretch. Like, you know, a great pair of capri pants in the summer. And then by the end of the day, you got to wash them and put them in the dryer again and get them to fit. What that means is that the fabric has what's called very poor recovery. It doesn't recover after it's been stretched. And it happens a lot when fabrics have Lycra. So the Lycra is designed to stretch, but if the Lycra isn't either of good quality, there is too much Lycra in its content of fabric, the Lycra won't bounce back easily. So I'm going to show you another little tip using this dress that's on the hanger of what you can do. So can you get that, Kathleen? When you have fabric and you're at the store, and this, you know, could be hanging on the hanger, what you always want to do if something has Lycra is you want to take two ends of it and you want to pull it, right? Just like that. And then you want to let it go. If the fabric doesn't spring back into shape, like this is pretty immediately, it's going right back into shape, and you're noticing it's taking either a long time to recover back to its natural shape, or it's bumping, you're noticing, oh wow, it just bumped out, it stayed stretched out after I pulled it, it means that the fabric has really poor recovery. And by the time you finish wearing whatever it is, by the end of the day, it's going to bag. So when I was a designer, what we would do is we would look at fabric swatches, so like something like this, like a 6-inch by 6-inch swatch, and we would go, all right, and we'd pull it if it had Lycra, and we'd be like, ugh, bad recovery, can't buy the fabric. So that's a little tip you can do in the store to avoid buying those pieces. The other thing that you can do if you love something and you notice it has poor recovery is that you can buy a size smaller if you can tolerate it. Buy this at least the smallest size you can fit into, because I guarantee you by the end of the day it will fit just fine. It will be fine. So you want to go with the tightest, especially with cotton. It's kind of like denim. You want to go with the smaller size because it will stretch out by day's end. The last little tip I have for you is whether or not something's going to wrinkle. I think there's nothing worse than when you buy something, especially for work, and you sit all day, you get up, and then you notice you have all those crease marks in your pants or your dress. Have you ever had that, Kathleen? Where,
yeah.
Yes, it's like, especially, and it's not even linen, but linen is the biggest culprit of this. But it happens a lot with fabrics, especially like thin wools, pardon me, wools that maybe don't have viscose or other drapier fibers in it. So what you want to do in a store, and I do this all the time with clients, I'll see something I'll want to pull for them and be like, oh, that's really gorgeous. And then I'll take the fabric and I'll take my hand and I will crunch it. And I will hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then I will release it. So you notice here, it's actually hardly wrinkled. So this actually is a pretty good fabric. But if you do this in the heat of your hand, what it does is it warms up the fabric almost like an iron, like you're applying heat to it, and you let it go, and there's this big, massive, wrinkly mess. It will do that on your body too. So that's the wrinkle test. You want to do the wrinkle test to make sure that you're not going to look like a big bag of wrinkles by the end of the day. Not a good look.
I like that tip.
Yeah, it's a quick one that you can do. I've been adjusting my bra this whole time, Kathleen, because apparently. Okay. Yes, it's a good tip that you can do just while it's in the store and you go, oh, that's really gorgeous, but let's see what happens when I do this, and you hold it. Stores hate it when I do it because then I walk around and there's like wrinkled messes everywhere. But yeah, you want to just hold it in that heat of your hand. We'll keep it and it will show you. And the very last thing I want to recommend is something that I swear by. For speaking of fabrics, you can tell I've used it a lot. There's hardly any left in the bottle. It's called soak wash. Soap wash is great. A lot of people will tell you that hand washing detergents like a Woolite or others like that aren't great for clothing. I'm not going to say whether or not it is or isn't. Some people swear by it. But I love this. It's called soak wash. And what I like about it is it's very gentle for clothing. I use it on all my bras that are apparently exposed today. I use it on all my bras and delicates, but you can also use it on your nice sweaters and whatnot. And what's great about it is not only is it very delicate and gentle, but you don't even have to really rinse it. All you have to do is soak it. And it's gentle enough that you don't even have to do a ton of rinses so it's like, boom, you're done. So this is what what I really love to use. I can't recommend it enough, called Soak Wash. And if you don't want to go this route, you can also try baby shampoo, actually, for your delicates. If it's delicate enough for baby, it's delicate enough for your clothing. So those are my 3 quick fabric tips for you this week. Hopefully they will help. Be sure to look for fabric on the bias. I'm telling you, the next time you go in your closet and you're like, this is why, you're going to realize, you're going to say, it was cut on the bias. That's why my dress grew every time I wore it. That's why the side seams got all lumpy. It's probably cut on the bias. So if you have any questions for me, you can visit me at bridgetteraes.com. Visit me on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Bridgette Raes Style Expert, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. It's all at Bridgette Raes. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.